Hello everyone. My name is Bryan Kanney, and I'm Assistant Director for Career Development at the Heller School. I have been at the Heller School for just over 4 years. I started in January of 2019. So it's great to see you all here. Just a note that the session is being recorded. So students, when there's time for Q&A, if you don't want to be recorded or you don't want to unmute yourself, you can chat to me or chat generally, and I'll move your conversation to the larger audience. With that said, I want to thank all of our panelists for being here. And I also want to thank the students who are filing in, and I know some staff will be joining as well. So thanks everyone for being here. I also want to mention that today's topic can be quite sensitive in nature. So I don't want anyone to feel compelled to reveal more information than they're comfortable sharing. And I also want to validate everyone's experiences. So we're all here for different reasons. We might have different visas, different countries of origin, experiences, stories. Your experience is valid and your advice is very much appreciated and welcomed. So thank you so much for agreeing to be here and share your experience with current students. With that said, I don't want to introduce, I'll allow our panelists to self-introduce. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and ask that the panelists sort of self-introduce based on this prompt. There we go. So name, academic programs from Heller, when you graduated, sort of your current title, employer, and then anything else you wish to share if you feel that's necessary. So with that.
Sure, is it popcorn style?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm happy to get us started. I'm Bakhtawer Abbasi. My phonetics are Bakhtawer. It's easier to remember that way. I am COEX class of 2020. I graduated in February 2020, right before the pandemic. My current title is that I'm a senior program associate at the Aspen Institute. The Aspen Institute's my employer, but I actually work for two programs. One is the Aspen Forum for Community Solutions, and the other is the Global Opportunity Youth Network. Bonus information being that I am originally from Pakistan and Texas. I self-identify from both of these places. I'll pass it to Shehreen.
Hi, everyone. I'm Shehreen Zakir. I graduated in 2022. I did my MS in Global Health Policy and Management. I am currently employed by the Harvard School of Dental Medicine as a research associate. In addition to that, I'm originally from Bangladesh, and it's been about almost 2 years that I'm here in the United States. I'll pass it to Ernest.
Hello, my name is Ernest Ogbozor. I graduated from SID in 2012. So maybe I'm the oldest one here. And I'm currently a professor at American University. And I also direct the African Research Cluster at American University.
Any bonus information?
Okay, yeah, I'll maybe later on. So I'll pass it on to Anne.
Okay, thank you, Ernest. I can take. My name is Anh. Hi, everybody. I'm originally from Vietnam, and I also graduated from the SID program, class of 2022. So I graduated last May in practicum track. And currently, I am working in a monitoring and evaluation role for an organization called Impact Hub Phnom Penh in Cambodia. The role's name is Impact Data Analyst, but it's monitoring and evaluation. And before that, so bonus information is before I took this role and after I graduate, I worked briefly as a research associate at a nonprofit based in DC called Association for Enterprise Opportunity as well. Okay, so back to you, Bryan.
All right, thank you all for that. Let me stop sharing here. Oh, good. Okay. So we have a couple of questions for the panelists, and in lieu of sort of sharing my screen, I think I'll type the question into the chat here. Because sometimes my laptop freezes when I'm giving presentations on Zoom, which is super helpful. So the first question that we have for our panelists is, let me type in the chat here. To everyone, here we go. Oh gosh, they didn't type very well, so I'll read it. So the first question that I'd like for the panelists to sort of speak to, if possible, is what were some of the challenges you faced during your search? Keeping in mind that, you know, people graduated at different times, they were here on different visa types, there's a lot of diversity and difference here. So if you could just share generally what some of the challenges you faced were.
Okay, okay, let me begin since I'm the oldest one here. And also, since I'm in the academic sector, so maybe I'll talk more about academic. Yeah, so I think finishing or before graduating from Hela School in 2012, I have a kind of, I wasn't applying for jobs, but rather I wanted to continue my academic career. Yeah, so my focus was more on trying to get a school where I can continue with my doctorate. So that was basically my focus. And again, from my research, getting a doctorate program is very competitive. Yeah, so I started preparing on time, you know, by making sure that I first, the GRE wasn't easy, you know, GRE wasn't easy. And again, I was not just looking for admission into a doctorate program, but also looking at where I can get funding support. Because when I joined Hela, I was a Ford Foundation fellow. So I had funding for 2 years. Yeah, so it wasn't private sponsored. So basically, yeah, so when I was looking for admission, I was looking for first a school that could offer me assistantship in terms of funding to continue. Yeah, but the field was crowded because many schools, like I did my doctorate at George Mason University. It's one of the best schools in conflict resolution. And because of that, very, very competitive. And George Mason gave funding to their doctoral students. Yeah, so I was lucky to get in, but at the same time, it wasn't easy. But I think one of the basic challenges was that apart from the funding, was even getting acceptance. The admission is not, so the admission is not easy, even before funding. But I think, so let me just stop at that. Yeah, so funding was an issue, and also GRE. GRE was also an issue because most schools that give funding want candidates with very, you know, very top or very high high mark in terms of GRE. Yeah, so that was what I struggled with.
Thank you, Ernest. So GRE, acceptance, funding, fellowship, lots of points to consider there, yeah. Next.
I can follow on. So some of my challenges, I have a Vietnamese passport, so here I'm an international student. So one of the natural challenge I face is also to first to decide if I want jobs here or jobs back from home. And the second issues I also face, so second bonus information, I moved in directly from undergraduate to the graduate program here. So I didn't work in between. So it's really hard. I really struggle with positioning myself as someone with strong work experiences in order to get a job in the United States. And then also as an international student, I also noticed as I did job search during COVID, that a lot of positions just straight out do not want to have international staff who they have to sponsor either now or in the future. So I've seen a few organizations that put right there on their job post. Our staff need to have a work permit, and the organization is not willing to sponsor you in the future. And so that like confronts me with the second question is, do I want to have a 1-year position or a position that is long-term? Am I willing to compromise for a 1-year position now? Or should I bet my chance into a place that give me a potential to stay a little bit longer? And even finding those opportunities was a little bit hard, especially because we were just coming out from COVID. So a lot of people were kind of cautious in their hiring. And then finding a position I really wanted a position in monitoring evaluation to develop further in my data analysis skills, but I learned most of them in Heller. And so again, like I come back to the challenge of being able to position myself as a strong candidate and in finding a job that pays well, that can sustain me in Boston. Okay, so I'll pass it to somebody else.
I can go next. So I think for me, my course was a 9-month course, and I took 40 credits. At the same time, when you start applying for jobs, being able to balance, the course load as well as trying to hit a certain number of applications every day was slightly challenging. But if you set a target for yourself every day that, I'm going to set aside 1 hour before your classes start or after your classes start, that would be helpful. Apart from that, during my finals week for one of the jobs that I was interviewing for, I had to write a research proposal. And that was, I would say a 500-word research proposal. And, I had a timeline that I had to, set aside 1 hour and finish it and submit it the same day as my finals. But, I got it done. And I would, if you're applying for research positions or anything that requires you to, prepare a project, you have to keep that in mind. Apart from that, the emotions that come with, rejection mails. At first, I was not used to that experience, but, with time, as I spoke to my other peers, they told me that it's very natural. Everyone was getting a lot of rejection. So you really have to get used to that and not let that affect you while you're, taking your courses and applying at the same time. I have a diverse experience, meaning I have a clinical background in dentistry, and then I shifted to public health research. So I actually was applying for, roles that, required research, managing research, as well as, being an investigator. And then, given you also have to study as well as tailor your resume and cover letter for every position, was slightly challenging, but it can be done. So you have to have the mindset for that. I can pass it to Bakhtawer.
Thanks, Shehreen. Yeah, so some of my thoughts, I think, definitely echo what Shehreen and Ann was saying. So for me, I think one of my challenges / biggest regret in grad school was that I put a lot of focus on making sure I got really good grades. So I really focused on and that's very important, but I definitely left out the piece about applying the jobs and internships simultaneously when we had the academic coursework going on. So I would usually wait for like summer break or spring break to have that kind of downtime to apply for jobs. But then that's also time that you want to invest with family and friends, because once you start working, you're probably not going to have summer or spring break. But I think, like Shehreen was saying, I think it's very important to have some kind of strategy while during your academic program that's like, okay, 1 hour a day, I'm just going to search for jobs and apply for jobs. I personally think one should consider that as a part of their academic workload, to have that extra hour a day that you're applying to jobs and internships. So that was one thing. I wish I had begun sooner with my search, and we'll dive into maybe some of this later with how I eventually got to a job that could sustain me in a city. But that was the second piece. I feel that, at least for myself, I was very new to the East Coast. So big city dynamics are very different than small city dynamics, or if you're coming in from an international city. So just knowing like how to budget, making sure that you have enough of a budget by the time you do land a full-time job that can sustain you. And today in the remote context, like maybe working from living in a less expensive city and eventually moving to the city, downtown city where you have your work opportunity, I think is something I didn't know. So I just came right in. I came right into DC with an unpaid internship. So I think maybe that was one of the things that I juggled with. So those were my two thoughts.
Great.
I'm sorry, I'd like to add something. So I think for me, it really helped because I started early during the winter break. Because, like my peers were telling me that, you have to, hit a certain number and you have to keep the search going on. So I guess that really helped. And by the time, I graduated, I was already in my third interview for 2 organizations. So that actually saves you time. Like if you have your OPT expiring, I think there's a timeline to which you have to, be able to get a job. Otherwise, it's not, I think you won't be able to work. And then, if you have to negotiate. So starting early really helped. Bryan, I'd like to pass it to you.
Oh, thank you for that. And there was a heart there, so that was great feedback. But I do want to mention that my colleague Karen from ISSO is here, and she can sort of, there were some smiles and waves, so people recognize Karen. That's great. So she's definitely able to contribute and sort of answer questions and add as we go along. So Karen, I want to thank you for being here. Obviously, the students know your name. They have smiles on their faces.
Thank you. Thanks. I might have some questions for them too after they finish sharing their experiences, just for me to be able to learn more as well. So thanks for having me here.
Yes, thanks for being here. With that, thank you for that feedback. We're going to move on to the second of the 4 questions. And oh goodness, that's not pasting correctly. So the second question is, what strategies and resources helped you in your search? So now that we know some challenges, where did you find success? So what were some of those resources that helped you?
All right, so let me go. And so I will still talk more about the academic. And I think my colleagues here have talked about jobs, but I will want to say, even if you don't get the job, if you have an interest in academic, this is also where you should also be looking at that direction as well, because that is the path which I took. I also have issues with visa. But at the same time, maybe through continuing your studies, that could in one way not resolve totally, but at least give you also some more time, whereas you continue to explore. So just to say that, so while searching for a program to continue for my doctorate, what actually helped me most was the HELA networks, my classmates, even some schools like George Mason. I never heard of George Mason in my life, but it was, and I never knew it was a good program for my area of interest. But it was my classmate that told me about the school. So the HELA network, both your classmates and also even those ones, alumni, they're all, because it's always good to do. When I arrived at George Mason, I was surprised to find some HELA there already. And they made, coming there easy for me. First, we have Professor Magopul, who is the head of Center for Regional Diplomacy. He used to teach at HELA School before he joined George Mason. Then the other doctoral students, Borislava, who is now a professor at George Mason, and also Phil Gamaye. Phil just joined University of San Diego. So these are all past HELA students. And when I was leaving HELA School, so Maria Fisdorf said to me, Ernest, Yeah, so she mentioned some of those names to me. And when I came, they made life easy for me in DC because I have people, I'm from Nigeria, just finished from HELA coming to DC, and this is very expensive. Yeah, but they made my life very easy. Yeah, so I think having this connection, doing more research to understand people from HELA that maybe the location where you are going is very, very helpful, or very helpful to me. Then another resources that helped me is that in applying for a doctoral program, like I was busy applying to Harvard, MIT, big schools, you know, but it was difficult. Yeah, so I think, but what helped me was that I spread my tentacles. I didn't put all my eggs in one basket. I applied to very top school, very mid and very low schools, you know. Yeah, so, and when I was applying, some of my classmates thought I was crazy, you know, applying for many schools, you know, not just applying for one or two, but, you know, because it is very, very competitive. And yeah, so you need to kind of, yeah, so I think that is also what helped me, not just relying on few schools or few top schools, but spreading my application, and it worked out. Yeah, so this is just a few examples of, yeah.
Great, so you kept your options open and you definitely utilized the Heller network.
Definitely, yeah.
Next.
Yeah, I can piggyback off of what Ernest was saying and applying it to the job sector, like going directly into looking for jobs after graduating. So I think the biggest success that I feel that happened for me was because I ended up being very open to the different kinds of job opportunities I was applying to. So I think that's the advice that I would give, is apply to everything, even if it's slightly off from the ideal opportunity that you're looking for, like Ernest was saying, like going to Harvard, MIT. So I think first when I started applying, I had like the big 5 NGOs in mind in DC, like, oh, I have to land a job at USIP or the Council for Foreign Relations. And like it is very competitive, especially if you're an outsider. Like I'm applying from Boston, I haven't interned in DC. So there are all of these different dynamics at play. So I think eventually I just started applying to everything. And I think what was really interesting, like Shehreen was saying, being open to the many rejections that might come through applications or interviews, was that I remember the first like real opportunities that I was getting in DC, one was a unpaid internship, and the other was like a grant manager at a big firm here, at a big NGO. But I didn't get the grant manager position, but I did get the the internship position. And I think, but being open to that, okay, like maybe I'm going for something that isn't ideally what I had envisioned myself doing out of grad school, but doing it helped me land the current role that I have, which is much more aligned with what I was looking for. So it took a little more time, but I did get to it. So I think that's kind of what I would say, just being very, very open. And I think there's this earlier point about like visas and OPT and how do we manage that in the situation. So I can't speak for myself because I had a green card when I was applying for these positions, but what I did see as success for my colleagues was that even if you come into a city like, you know, Boston, Washington, DC, New York, where the majority might be NGOs, there are for-profits that do similar work that are more open to giving visas and sponsoring them. So I think, again, maybe taking that route. So just like growth might not be linear, you might have to do something else to get where you want to be. But I think just being very open to that is what I would say is the best, most practical advice from my experience.
I can go next, if that's okay. So for me, I think Bryan really helped me. I think the 3rd month of, you know, coming to Heller, I booked an appointment with him and I took my CV and he was like, okay, so you need a resume. Do you know what it is? And as embarrassing as it sounds, I did not know what a resume is. So I had, I think, 3 or 4 sessions with him. I made my resume, a lot of corrections. I think for me, the resources that were provided by the Career Center, the brochures that, you know, guide you to make your resume, your LinkedIn profile, your cover letter, those were really helpful. And to this day, I really look to them, you know, even when I'm trying to look for jobs at this point. Before my interview, I scheduled an appointment with Bryan, and then he, guided me, on the questions that I would face and how to prepare myself. That really helped. And as for strategies, I used LinkedIn. So, I would save my job search, and I uploaded 2 or 3 versions of my cover letter and resume tailored to that particular role. So every morning, there's an option in LinkedIn that says easy apply. And I would target those jobs that has like not 130, applicants, but say, it was posted half an hour back or a few hours back. So I would apply to those. Apart from using LinkedIn, it's also helpful if you apply to the website of the original job posting. That is what I did for my current role, because sometimes they don't look at the application submitted. It's also helpful if you reach out to the hiring manager and, start creating a rapport between you and whoever's hiring. And if you would like to take it from here.
Yeah, I think Ernest, Bakhtawer, and Shehreen have covered like so many things, and I'm in a lot of consensus with all of you in alignment. Totally agree that I also, in my experience, I also cast my net as wide as I could. I only have a couple of like key criteria for my job. It has to do with something with data analysis, because that's something I wanted to develop in, and it pays. So, and then I just go apply everywhere. And I have a system, like I make a folder just for resume in my laptop and uploaded them on Google Drive, and I just basically recycle them. There are certain jobs that are very similar in nature, or the organizations are really similar in nature, in which case I kind of recycle the cover letter or the resume. I also keep like a mother file, like a master file of my resume, where I have all of my experience. And then depending on the job, I just take out the irrelevant one. So that really helped me reduce the time that I use to polish my resume and cover letter as I apply. And also in agreement with Shehreen in the LinkedIn strategy, I also target the ones that are like within 7 days of posting. I'm like, okay, 7 days is doable. More than 7 days is a little bit fishy. At that point, they probably don't look at that anymore. And then I also script everything I do when I get to an interview stage, and because English is not natural for me, and I don't know how to diplomatic. And I'm sure that a lot of native speakers also struggle with knowing how to use the right kind of language that are professional and diplomatic. So I highly recommend script everything. It was really, really helpful for me to be able to like know exactly what I will say, what kind of scenario I can speak out in an interview. Some of the examples, I have like 5 or 7 constant examples I would reuse. And depending on the questions, I'll just take those examples in and I frame them a little differently to fit the questions. And also another thing I want to piggyback on Ernest, the Hello community was the best thing that happened to me in terms of resource. Not only was that SID LinkedIn group that posts many jobs where I found my first job, but also my Hello peers. There are people in my class cohort that are somehow more, they know their way with the language. They were able to use language so well, so professional, and it lands so well with the audience. It landed well with me. And so I was able to ask them for advice to help me script my everything that I do and run through my language with them. Like, is it professional enough? I want to say this, but I don't know how to say. Like, how do I negotiate for salary by not saying, without saying I want more salary? Or how do I say like, okay, I want to let you know that I know somebody in your organization before, but I don't want that to affect anything. Like, they help me put language into the things I want to say in the best way scenario. And so being able to bounce that with somebody who is in the field, who know the kind of work we're doing, but also who knows how to use the language in the best way is very helpful. And I'm sure the Career Center can play that role as well. And then finally, I would say a resource that has not been mentioned yet, but I really love is ChatGPT. ChatGPT helped me with my language. I don't use exactly what ChatGPT tells me to say, but it gives me ideas and language to get started on how I'm going to say this, how I'm going to get started. And then I can go from there to like start putting my own color into a paragraph, a sentence, an email. Like I don't spend 45 minutes writing email anymore. So I started applying it only recently in my work, but I think it would be very helpful in a job search as well, or job application.
So now I'm going to have to follow up on Chat GPT. So that's on my to-do list. Thank you. And then Shehreen, I just want to say thank you for the feedback. You've always been so kind. And I just want to clarify that I did not pay her to say any of this information. Those were genuine feedback. So thank you. Moving into the third question is, how did you connect to your how did you connect to your first role, or how did you connect to your current role? Just kind of thinking about strategy. And again, it's not pasting very well into the chat, I'm sorry. How did you connect to your first role outside of Heller? And how did you connect to your current role if it's different from your first role outside of Heller? And Ernest, I know it's a little bit different situation here.
Yeah, if it's okay, I want to just connect back to An's point and then connect to this question, because they're kind of related. So I think just thinking about resources that help me reach the job that I have. I think that I haven't used ChatGPT, but I think one thing that's really helped me is Grammarly. It's like a free plugin that you can just put on your laptop. It helps with, finding any kind of errors in your cover letters and emails. So that's one. But I would say in addition to that, just looking at casting your net as wide as you can, I think what was really helpful for me was that in addition to LinkedIn, there are certain job career platforms that can filter NGO or Heller type jobs or jobs that Brandeis students would be interested in. And so I really liked Idealist. I liked the PCDN network and the NGO job board, and I'm happy to put these in the chat. And I felt that kind of saved me time because I didn't have to go through a wide LinkedIn search, because through the PCDN network or through Idealist, I would get a filtered amount of jobs that I was interested in applying to in Washington, D.C., Boston, and New York. So that was one piece around resources. And then connecting to your question, how I landed the first job that I had, which was an internship in Washington, D.C. So again, being very open, I think I came across it in Idealist. It was an unpaid internship for 6 months, and that's what I ended up coming into. But I think it really helped me build a network in DC to eventually get advice that helped me land the current job that I have. So at least for me, networking, I would say, didn't help me land my current role. These platforms, applying on these platforms helped me land my current job, but networking helped me with advice to maybe ace the interviews and the application process. And then my current job, again, I had no network in DC, Boston, and New York, other than the network that I had with Heller. And I feel that just applying to everything, there were periods where I didn't get a lot of responses to the applications that I was doing. And then there was this period where all of a sudden I had like 3 interviews lined up at the Aspen Institute. And then I was actually doing these interviews simultaneously for 3 different programs. So I think, again, it's okay if you're applying to multiple positions at an organization, as long as there are different teams and programs that don't talk to each other, it just gives a lot more opportunity. And it was just a very generic process. It was like a online process through no contacts, no networking. So I think for me that it almost gives me hope to think that it's not just necessary that you need to have a network. You can make it out here just by applying and taking the advice that you're getting from different connections and advice through the Heller Career Group. I also really liked the Heller Career Portal. I think those were some of the initial networking opportunities that I got and interviews that I got.
So Bakhtawer, the Heller career portal, can you say more?
Yeah, there's like a Brandeis career portal as well that you can access where all the apps are. I'm forgetting its name, but
Oh,
it
yes.
also gives you like different job applications and people can reach out to you.
Handshake or Beacon?
Handshake.
Okay.
Handshake. There we go. Sorry, it's been a while.
No, you're fine. I just wanted to make sure I was on the same page with that resource. Thank you. What next?
I can go next. Just like Bakhtawer, I didn't use any, network to get my first job. I used LinkedIn. So I also looked for research positions that were, in collaboration with Bangladesh, because I know that when I was working back in Bangladesh, we had a lot of our PIs were based in, say, universities here in the United States. And one of the organizations that I did interview for, and I was shortlisted, was doing research in Bangladesh. So that is another thing that I incorporated in my strategy. So yeah, I mean, I didn't use any network. I just used LinkedIn. So yeah, anyone who wants to go next?
Sure. I kind of preview a little bit earlier. I found my job not directly through SID LinkedIn group, but sort of. So it was during my second year. I was doing practicum. My first practicum was a little bit not challenging enough for me. Like I felt like I have a lot more brain power to be anxious about other things. So I started applying for more jobs. and I came across this internship opportunity in the SID group. It was advertised by an alumni, and it was data analysis, and it pays very well. It's not analyzing anything that I really care that much about, but it's still social cause. So I applied, and I think I didn't know the alumna, but just the sheer fact that we're from the same school. She also helped interview me along with another person. There were a lot of common ground that we can chat about. So I felt like I built a little bit of connection with her, and perhaps that really helped me boost up my case. Like we recognize the same professors in technical skills, for example, like that was really helpful. And so I got into that internship, and during that internship, I also spend a lot of time getting to know everyone in the organization, like an actual quality one-on-one time. Sometimes it takes an hour, sometimes it takes 2 hours. And it was time for us to like get to know each other as a person. Like, who is this person from? How did they grow up? Who are you there in the family? What did they study? How did they get here? Like, what do they care about on a daily basis? So that really helped me build up like a really good network within the organization. These people have a really, really positive feedback about the way I showed up in the organization, the way I carry myself, and the way I cared. And that was a big consideration for why they want to keep me as a full-time afterward, because they felt like I was a great asset to the organization's culture, alongside with my technical skill. Even though, because I was in an internship, they knew for sure where my skill was and how much I'm learning. And then that was my first role. I did it briefly until January, and then I transitioned into a second role in Cambodia, which is a completely different jump. And also for that role, I just kind of applied out of nowhere. It's completely saw an opportunity on LinkedIn because an acquaintance kind of shared it. An acquaintance I never actually even met. This person I connected with on LinkedIn through my previous internship, just because we were both Vietnamese, that's it. And they must have interacted with the post, and then it showed up on my LinkedIn feed. I applied, and much later realized that this person is a person that is very well connected in the ecosystem here. And I later met them in person. But all of those to say, all of the relationship and connections that I were able to make and maintain, and however light that was, like however shallow it was, it kind of pull me in different ways to get me to where I am today in my current role. And that person also helped my current organization did a LinkedIn check on me. Like that person helped screen my profile. And I think our shallow connection kind of helped me show up as someone who is not that strange. Like, who's the stranger applying for a job in Cambodia? You know, so that's kind of the experience.
I have one quick thing to add that also really helped me. I think the career tracks are really helpful. So I think for me, as someone who was new to the East Coast, I came in thinking that I want to work in New York. And then when I went to the New York career track, I'm like, no, I don't think the city is for me. And then when I came to DC, I'm like, okay, this is much more manageable. And then I kind of refined my search to look for opportunities in DC. So I think just going to those career tracks and building those networks are also very important. Yeah, so just attending the events that Bryan, you lead, I think are a great resource.
I think for me, some of the resources that help me, especially in my current job, there are a lot of higher education job, Chronicle for Higher Education, and as well as academicjobs.com. Yeah, so there are a lot of information about academic jobs, but I want to talk specifically about how maybe my first assignment or job, even while a doctoral student. Yeah, so I think some of the skills which I picked from Hela School, like project management and evaluation, was very handy to me, because just when I was finishing up my classes and haven't done my comprehensive and about going for my field research, so there was this request for proposal from U.S. Institute of Peace for a project in Nigeria. So I was able to put together a research proposal, and I won a 3-year grant. Yeah, so for 3 years of my doctorate, so I was traveling to Nigeria every 3 months. Yeah, so I think that is, yeah, so even if we cannot get job or some of those skills that we have already, we can translate it into something. Yeah, so I think that helped me. And even after graduating for my doctorate, I didn't have a job immediately, but I won an evaluation proposal from Search for Common Grant. So I evaluated a usage project in Nigeria. Yeah, so I think there are some skills from Hela that even if we cannot get job in a company, but we can use it to be able to win a grant and work. Yeah, so I think that's that helped me a lot, even while a student, a doctoral student, and even while finishing before I got my my full-time job with American University. So.
Great, thank you. And the last question isn't so much a question, it's just sort of opening the forum to the panelists to provide any additional insights or information, advice that they would like to offer at this point.
Okay, let me just highlight one advice. I have my doctorate in peace and conflict studies, but at American University, I wasn't employed in the peace and conflict program, but rather in international development program. So, and I'm also coordinating the project management track. All these are skills I picked from Hela School, not from my doctoral program. Yeah, so I think one thing which we pick from Hela School, which we don't know, is that because I was told by one of my professors that I've been trained to be a manager, and as a manager, you know everything. Yeah, some of us want to specialize, but just as we said earlier, you don't know, you know, where you'll be needed. Yeah, so just having this open mind, learning everything, you know, don't say this is not, yeah, just learn everything, because you don't know when it's going to be useful. Yeah, so I think, yeah, that helped me, because otherwise, I have another classmate that was employed by American University in the conflict program. So they don't have job for me in conflict, but because I have this project management skill, I was also employed. Yeah, so that's why I have job today. Yeah, so I think it's good to learn as much as possible, everything if you can, but not everything, but at least just be broad in terms of knowledge. Don't say this is my area and that is it. No, because you don't know where the job is going to come.
Thank you, Ernest. That's a great perspective and a reminder as a professional too. Next.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, no, go for it. Go.
I think two quick things that I've learned through my experience. The first one I would say is to Shehreen's point earlier, don't be discouraged, especially in the earlier process when you're applying for jobs. I think like as a student, in the beginning, I was like, oh, is there something wrong with like me that I'm not getting opportunities? But sometimes it could actually be like the hiring cycle at organizations, something to do with the economy, the pandemic. So I think not being discouraged and applying to everything that makes sense to you. And the thing that I found helpful is I created like an Excel spreadsheet in which I would write down the different organizations that I applied to and the jobs there. So it would help me track, okay, like, have I met my goal of applying to X, Y, and Z companies? Who else is out there? I think that was very helpful. But something I've learned as a part of like the Aspen Institute, where I have been working now for 3 years, is that some of the things that I thought were like my differences or my lackings because of like my identity could actually be gifts that you bring to your workplace and to your work. So I think having that frame of mind and how you bring that to your workspace is very important and key, because I think it just helps everyone thrive. It helps you thrive yourself. So I think retuning that these aren't my differences or lackings, but these are actually my experiences about my identity that I can help better inform the work that we're doing in the field.
I like that a lot. You sort of own, this is who I am. And then the other piece is, yeah, there's a lot that is out of one's control and hands during the application process. And so something that I've emphasized, domestic or international, is to focus on those pieces that you can control, right? So yeah, thank you. Next.
So a couple of things on me, and this is not like the most important thing when applying for a job, but I think is something that has been helpful in my experience. One is being proactive in connecting with Bryan professors, and this doesn't necessarily have to happen in a class, but it can happen in an office hours, just like a catch up one-on-one with them, get to know them, let them get to know us, and it would help so much when later I need a letter of recommendation. These people know me and at least are willing to write a stellar letter for me. And some of them I maintain contact until now. And some of them even ask me like, how's your job search so far? Like, what are you looking for? I know someone who's working in this field. They are Hello alumni. Maybe if you want, I can connect you too. And so, I mean, it didn't turn out into a job for me, but I've seen those happen, and it's very heartwarming for me to see. And as I talk with these professors, what I heard from them is they have so many students. Sometimes students don't show up, but then they email them for a letter of recommendation. And professors don't know these students. They don't know who they're recommending. So the letter of recommendation that you get would be very generic. So give them a reason to write you a good one. I think that would be a really helpful thing. And then a second thing that I really struggled with as I was doing job search is a mindset that everything I'm doing is about getting a job. Everything I'm doing is getting a job. But it's not true. That really limited my mindset. Even when I network with other people, when I ask people for advice, if I only had the mindset that this is just for a job, it made that interaction and network so much more painful. Like I feel like I'm asking something from them, but it's not necessarily the case. So I would just recommend taking things a little bit easier. This is just a connection, get to know the experiences. It's super helpful for me to have a few friends who are international students in the same situation as I am, but are 1 year or 2 years before me. They tell me about their experience. They don't give me a job, but I know, okay, around this time I need to get started on OPT. Okay, around this time I need to start job search. So those are like kind of helpful, organic advice that I get throughout the way, just because of the good connection that I was able to have with the Hello communities. without thinking about, I'm going to get a job from them.
I might invite you to help present a networking workshop, because that was excellent. Or not, okay.
I'm not the best person to do a networking events with. But this is something I also heard from my friends who are really great networkers. They themselves told me, like, networking is just, it's not about what you get from them. It's just getting to know each other. We get to know each other in different way. I have a different style, not in a big group, but the key goal maintains that is about the relationship, not what I get out from the relationship. So that at least that was helpful for me, and it helped me ease my anxiety.
And next.
To add to An's point, I think maintaining a good relationship with my professors helped me a lot. I also leveraged my on-campus job at Heller. I was working as a TA, so when I needed recommendations, I reached out to the professors, and they were very helpful, in providing that. Apart from that, I'll just say, keep on applying. Don't be discouraged. I know that, coursework can be very stressful, as well as rejections can be very hurtful, but you don't know, probably the finish line is much closer than you anticipated to be. Another thing I would say, that when you sit for your interview, do practice. Like a lot of us here, English doesn't come naturally to me, so I had to practice a lot. I had to prepare scripts. I had to prepare for any, situations that would come my way. Thank you.
Yeah, and I just wanted to share a story to add to what Shehreen was saying about keep applying. I had a really close friend who was really struggling to find the right job for quite a few months and kept applying for different government institutions, and felt, there are times when they felt very discouraged. But there was at one point when the interviewer called them back and say, hey, I think you would be a perfect person for the position of our partner. Can I refer you to them? And now they get a job there. So, but these take a few months, and it takes so much effort to continue applying, and trying to develop the relationship. I wanted to end this advice section in encouraging notes. So I want to share that story.
Yeah, and quickly, I know we're at time, but it's a similar thing that happened with me with my job at Aspen. So when I said I had 3 interviews lined up coincidentally after 8 months of not having a lot of luck, the first interview that I gave, they said, it's a no from us. We don't think you're a good fit for our program, but we know that this other program is hiring. Can we recommend you and refer you to that program? And then I ended up getting that referral for the other interview that I had with the other program, and they hired me because they had a referral from someone else at the Aspen Institute. So I think no's can help turn into yeses with other opportunities. So I think just, again, applying to everything and being open works.
Well, with that, I do want to be mindful of everyone's time. I think we might have time for one question, if there's a question from someone in the attendance.
Hey, Bryan. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Paul. Go ahead, Paul. I'll save mine.
I just want Bryan to repeat what he said about managing what you're able to. There's a phrase he made just before the last speaker spoke. Just a repeat of that. Controlling being able to use what you can control, as in not to trying to push it beyond, something like that.
Yeah, there's I encourage folks to focus on what they can control. There's so much that happens in the application process that's outside of your control. So maybe an organization determines that there actually isn't funding, or maybe you've done everything right in the application and interview process. You've made a compelling case, but there's another candidate who doesn't have to move to DC. They're already in DC, and ultimately they choose the person who lives in DC. You've done nothing wrong, right? So it's easy to beat ourselves up when we don't know sort of why. So from my perspective, I advise focus on what you can control. You can control your applications, your resume, your cover letter, your networking, how you speak about yourself, and so on. So Paul, that's probably my best advice, is to, as much as possible, easier said than done, try to limit yourself to focus on the things that you can control. Is that helpful?
Yes, thank you so much.
You're welcome. And Karen?
Yeah, sorry, I want to steal the show for a minute. And first of all, thank all of you for being here, because those of you that are presenting are such a valuable resource and role models for the current students and the coming students. So thank you so much. It is heartwarming to hear your stories and your advice. And for those of you that aren't presenting and here to learn, again, congratulations, because you're taking the right steps to prepare yourself as much as you can for what the future holds. But my question is particularly one that we struggle with a lot in international offices, as to at what point do we introduce career services to our international students? And there's two schools of thought on that. Some schools believe that during orientation, like when you just arrive, is the time that we should be starting to talk already about career resources and career networking and your career plan. Other schools of thought say, well, it's too overwhelming. They already have too much to think about and to get settled in. So wait till another time. So I just guess I'm wondering, what do you think is the best time for us to be introducing the idea of connecting with the career planning office?
For me personally, sorry, I'd like to start. I think I agree with the second idea that, once this international student gets used to the coursework, the university, getting used to, their living condition, etc., say 3 months after the program starts, or, right before their first term exam, they're going to have a break for winter. So probably during that time, if, they can prepare themselves and start applying.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I would though say, like you're saying, 3 months, like sooner than later. Like I wouldn't say that, oh, like if they're overwhelmed, we should wait for a year. And then like, I think that too much time has passed. But I think in my own experience, like I was saying, I think it would have been helpful for me in retrospect to have been applying during my winter break, my spring break, my summer break. So I think maybe having known everything that I would have known, maybe my path to career would have been slightly better. I don't know, it's wishful thinking. But I would say that maybe like in the orientation, introducing that this is something that you will do a session on in 2 or 3 months. So it's teed up, but it's not being enforced immediately.
Yeah, no, I like that. Anyone else have some advice for us for our programming? Okay, well, thank you.
Yes. So again, I want to thank all of our panelists. It's great to meet and to reconnect with each of you. And Karen, thank you for being here. And of course, our students, current students who are learning from our graduated students, our alumni. So just thank you everyone for being here. Again, your experience is valid, and we very much value and appreciate you and look forward to continuing to work together. So everyone do take great care, and we look forward to being in touch.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you so much.